Before the Jeeps started rolling off Toledo assembly lines, there were the Willys Overlands. Before the Willys, the electric Milburn was made here in Toledo. And before that, the Pope Toledo, an incredibly elegant machine of brass luxury. But in 1901, we built the granddaddy of all Toledo cars. It was the Toledo Steamer, an all-steam-powered car built by the American Bicycle Company on Central Avenue, a popular vehicle powered by a steam boiler. It also used a tiller instead of a steering wheel. It was slow, about 4 miles an hour, only had a range of about 35 miles, and it rolled across America's early roads on what were essentially bike tires. From $600 to $900 in price, it promised a reliable ride and was one of many steam-powered cars gaining popularity before the gas-powered engines came into vogue. The Toledo Steamer gained some early fame, though, and in 1902 it became the first car ever to drive to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Well, sort of. It took 5 days from Flagstaff, 60 miles, and it broke down so much, had to be towed to the South Rim, where this iconic photo documented the event in automotive history. Curiously, in 2014, the Howell brothers from England decided to replicate that historic Grand Canyon trip of 1902 and gave it their best try with their antique Toledo steamer. And with some promotion, a little pushing, and a lot of sweat, they made it, making Toledo a part of Arizona history again. Today, there are few Toledo steamers left, collectors and museum pieces mostly, that command some big money. They also command lots of attention at car shows. Many of the old engines, well, they still run and chug along. Ironically, while these automotive icons of the city that built thousands of them and bears our name, no one in Toledo owns one. If you want to see one here, you have to look at a picture. Lou Hebert, WTOL 11. It was 7 stories high and 370 feet across when it was built in 1914 by John North Willys. It marked what he called his crowning achievement of the greatness of his company. It was an imposing landmark that sat next to the plant for decades, the pride of the company.
This is Joe's first trip to the factory, and he's really impressed with everything.
Yeah, even this administration building. I didn't expect anything like this.
We're proud of our ad building. It's one of the most beautiful in the industry.
It was decades, though, before Jeep was built at the plant during World War II, built when the Overland and the Willys Knight were the cars that were made here and enjoyed by families everywhere. But in 1979, the company said this legendary building was no longer usable. It had seen its better days.
Why not save the old building? Jeep officials say it isn't worth it. It's in poor condition, expensive to heal.
The 900 employees who once worked in these wood-lined offices were long gone. The interior fixtures put on the auction block, and the 65-year-old legacy was soon to become a memory.
Make the building fail progressively, and if we detonated all of the charges we have in the building at once, we would blow out windows for a half a mile around.
The demolition company placed hundreds of charges at key points in the structure and 100 pounds of dynamite. Everything was set. A tense silence filled the air on that April morning in Toledo as the countdown began.
3, 2, 1.
There were no tears, just cheers from the assembled crowd as this piece of history came tumbling down like a wounded giant. It was a thrill for most who saw it.
And then that was really fun when that little...
Did it hurt your ears?
Sort of.
Within weeks, the rubble and the ruin were hauled away. A building, a legacy erased. But not the memories of that day when a piece of Toledo history that had stood for decades fell to the scrap heap of history. Lou Hebert, WTOL 11.
A handsome roadster? Maybe a peacock. They worked on me and worked, and finally, here's what came out. Can this be an automobile, men wondered? Looks more like a four-wheel Beetle, one of them said. No, I wasn't too proud of myself back there at the start when the Army first looked me over. Then they sent me out on the road. They tried to drown my motor, but my ignition was set too high for that. They tried to break my back on roller coaster roads. When I held together, it looked as if the Army and I might somehow get along because they gave me a nickname. From the words general purpose, they took the G and the P. They called me Jeep. It sounded more like a noise than a name. Then it really began. I was sent out on maneuvers. This Army was getting tough. Could I keep up with them? Was I good enough? How did I know? All I could do was keep my fenders straight, my gears grinding, and hope for the best. And the things they asked me to do, like rivers, for instance. I had to be light enough to cross water in my own canvas tarpaulin. Lucky I didn't weigh more than 2,200 pounds. And it was lucky that I wasn't any bigger than 11 feet long and 5 feet wide and 3 feet high. Because when the outfit took to the air, they expected me to go right along with them. One day it'd be airplane. The next it'd be a transport glider. And if I wasn't riding in them, I was pulling them up into the sky. Lucky I was 60 horsepower strong. The Army was getting tougher, preparing itself for the big offensives that were coming. And I had to get tougher to keep up. I'll say one thing, no matter what they asked me to do, pull cannon, break my own road through the underbrush, or keep moving at better than 70 miles an hour, it was no worse than what my driver was ready to do himself. The American soldier and I got along fine, like a good rider and a horse. We got to be pals. But even so, I had my doubts. Most of the machines around me had proved themselves in battle. I was still on probation. I did about everything a machine could do to stick with that army. I stood up to gunfire and mounted a gun of my own. I laid down smoke to hide the tanks that followed. I helped out wherever I could. I even learned how to splash across rivers. With a boat arrangement built around my middle. But I didn't know yet whether I was accepted until all of a sudden I found myself in mass production. It meant only one thing. I was a success. I was getting turned out 1 every 2 minutes. 30 Jeeps an hour. What do you think of that? All of a sudden, I found that I was a popular kind of character. I was marching right up there in front with the band. I was meeting movie stars, and we went out driving together. We sold war bonds right down the streets of Washington, D.C. itself. I was a success.